Good afternoon, everyone. I expect afternoon. Yesterday we had visitors from Melbourne, Brazil, Canada, so perhaps it's good morning or good evening for you. My name is Wouter Nieuwenburg. I'm a business consultant at Pen Company and a competence developer, which means I have to make sure Pen Company has the best business analysts from the Netherlands. And I will be the moderator and host for today. And this session today, which you choose to visit, is about cybersecurity. One little thing beforehand, today are the general elections in the Netherlands, and until 2009 we had the option to make a digital vote when you're at the location. But then there was someone saying, oh, security, no more. So today I went to the election and had to use a pencil and make a red dot in it and put it in a basket. So I'm wondering what we can learn today and hopefully can learn for the next election in the Netherlands to make it digital again. For now, we have two speakers. The first is Andrej. He's the vice president of the IBA chapter in Slovakia. Or how do you pronounce it in English?
Slovenia.
Slovenia. I'm sorry, Slovenia. He is the first speaker, and well, if you have any questions for him, please put them in the comments box, which you can see on the YouTube channel you're watching. And either I try to interrupt Andrej in his presentation, or I will save them for the Q&A at the end. Andrej, the floor is yours. Have a good presentation.
Thank you very much for this introduction. I hope that you are seeing my screen with the presentation. Yes, that's the perfect. So, as you said, we are coming from a small country. Slovenia is a country on the let's say Adriatic coast between Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Croatia. A very beautiful country with 2 million people. We started with IBA chapter in 2009, and probably at least half of the business analysts know us, that we organized a first business conference on an old steam machine train on a different coaches and under the cave. It was in 2018 when it was still when we were still able to travel around the world without the corona. So we are special in different ways. But for this presentation, I just choose a topic which is very, very, let's say, actual and popular in a moment. It's cybersecurity and how to build in cybersecurity into the products and solutions that we are developing on a daily basis. I'm co-founder of two different companies. One is more or less related to cybersecurity, and the other one to artificial intelligence. And at the end of the presentation, you will see that today the efficient, protection and detection of the frauds are actually done by the artificial intelligence, that the humans are not enough anymore to detect all the things that are going on and to protect us against the cyber attacks. But just to give you a quick background, I will present you a case that was somehow done in 2020, in the previous year. It was a special year from different points of view. I think regarding Slovenia, it was a very, very good year related to the investment that were done into the digital transformation, digital solution, any different project that were related with the digitalization of the processes, because the coronavirus hit us and the lockdown period was at least, I think, 8 or 9 months. It's even better from that perspective in this year, because a lot of European funds that actually received to Slovenia are spent for digital transformation project. And cybersecurity is always a part of such a project. On the other side, if this was a business circumstance, on the other side, the cybersecurity attacks also increase actually exponentially, especially in the countries like Italy, France, UK, Netherlands, also the Slovenia, but I didn't got the right data. So there was a big correlation between the Corona crisis and the cyber attacks. We all started to use different channels. We all started to work on the projects, on different tools, sharing the documentation, sharing the knowledge, etc. And of course, the cyber attacks were exactly focused on the area we were changing our business and doing a lot of different how to say attacks and damage to the business. So we approached to that problem with a very specific how to say thoughts maybe at the beginning. So can we build in cybersecurity into the product life cycle? Cybersecurity is not a topic that you will discuss at the end of your product development, to discuss at the end of the lifetime of the products. It is something that should be discussed during the whole phase of product development. Probably you're all familiar with the product lifecycle management, with the typical phases we have inside, from the idea, from the design, manufacturing, distribution, assembly, packaging, sending digital or manual the product to the client. Then we have the usage from the customer side, the maintenance and support. And of course, every single product life cycle ends with the end of the life period. It means that we recycle it or we resell it for different parts to different how to say or vendors or companies around the world. So product cybersecurity that will be looking to product life cycle should always start from the idea and end with end of life of the product, not only on the usage, not only on the assembly, not only on the development, but we have to treat and we have to protect all the phases against cybersecurity threats. So on the other side, we said, okay, if we have product life cycle, do we have a cybersecurity life cycle? And we found one from National Institute for Standardization that actually define again 5 steps of cybersecurity framework, and we have identify, protect, detect, response, and recover. So you have 5 steps how you can handle the cybersecurity in your company. So what we did and we decided is just to join those cycles together. So we will build in cybersecurity into the product life cycle if we, very simple, merit those 2 life cycles. And we said in every single step of the product life cycle, we will take care about all 5 steps of cybersecurity framework. It's very easy to say, but it was at the end very hard to actually do on the project. We got a partner, a Slovenian company, which is present here on the Adriatic coast. They actually got some tender from European Union funds to let's say improve their processes, to improve the cybersecurity aspect of their processes. And they are doing, I call it smart machines. This is the real example of the machine installed somewhere in Croatia. So you have a machine where you can withdraw the money, you can make a phone call, you can buy bitcoins, you can buy some different, let's say, not in this case, but in other different snacks, different beverages. It means a multifunctional smart machine with a lot of different interfaces, with a lot of different data on it. Also your personal data, because you have to log in, you have to identify yourself with the phone, with the smart card, any other media. And of course, changing and transferring the money from different accounts, different vendors and partners in that area. And we said, okay, can we choose something like product, something like this product, and to how, let's say, present the possibility to build in cybersecurity framework into the development of the product like this. And we said, okay, it is possible to done. It took us at least 3 to 4 months to do it, but at the end we did it, and we have some significant improvements on the processes and on the security level. So how we did it? just don't be afraid about the slides. I will explain the framework, the technical framework we use. So I'm a process guy. My background is process optimization. So we said, okay, the product life cycle will be as a process, a baseline for our framework. And we use Mega is a very simple tool for business architecture, a very good one. So we will use a tool to define all the processes and the activities, to define all the stakeholders that are part of our product life cycle, all the communication between different flows, between different stakeholders. And of course, we will document all the applications, the systems and locations in our case that are part of the product development process. On the other side, the tool also allowed us to define also some element of the security policy. I call it, and we will go through every single one so you will understand what does it mean. So we define our cybersecurity objectives, out of that our requirements. We define all the cybersecurity risk in the processes. Out of the risk, we define the controls, and at the end, corrective actions we have to take to actually decrease the level of the risk inside our processes. On the other side, we also took IABA Cybersecurity Analysis Handbook as one of the foundation, because what I'm talking at the moment, it's a business analyst job. Nobody in the technical department will not understand the process of product development as business analysts do. And it was not the end owner, it was not the product owner, it was the business analyst that should and actually did the first step of the how to say, developing our framework. So what we did, we will go step by step, task by task. The first one was we have to map our process. So what are you seeing on the screen are the real pictures from the project. I will apologize because some of the picture from the production environment are still in Slovenian language, but I translate some of the parts for you just to understand. Only the risk assessment page will be hidden because we don't have allowance to show you, because it's a very, very important page. So let's start with the first page and with the first task. As a business analyst, I map the process, the product development lifecycle process. It actually has, you see, different steps, different sub-processes, from ideation and building the product concept to analysis, planning, requirements gathering, then design, prototyping, etc., to actually manufacturing, monitoring the usage of the products, all the support and maintenance, and at the end, that we said, the end of the life cycle of the product. So inside of those sub-processes, we define the activities that are hidden inside. It means the second level of the processes. And we have around, if you counted, it was around 30 different activities where we will have to take care about the cyber security. That was SE's level, but I can explain to you that to be level on the process level, to be status was actually the same. The cybersecurity didn't change the process itself, but it changed the risk, and it changed the identification and detection of the cybersecurity risk and attacks inside those activities. And as you will see at the end, we also introduce some solutions to help us to protect the company and the process against the cybersecurity attacks. So we need, let's say, a week, something like that, to map all the process, to find all the stakeholders, to find all the handovers between the processes, sub-processes, and activities. And as you see on those icons, some of the activities were even defined a little bit deeper. So when it was necessary, we go also on the task level inside the process map. So that was the first and the second task. The task number 3 was actually a little bit more difficult, because you, as a business analyst, and then as a business, let's say, owner or the owner of the process, you always have to ask yourself, what are the information, what are the systems or the knowledge you have to protect. If you don't know what are you protecting, you cannot apply a cybersecurity policy inside your company. And we said, okay, first we will define our objectives. What are the goals, what we want to achieve with the cybersecurity protection inside our processes. And we go from the high level, from the strategy of the company, from the area where the company is doing the business, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper. And you will see later how many, around 20 different objectives we define, and later we have to support them and deliver the solution that will support those objectives. So out of those objectives, we immediately define the requirements. So if we want to achieve those objectives, we need something to protect, and we call that, okay, these are the requirements. And again, we use ISO 27001 as a standard. It is also mentioned in the IIBA cybersecurity handbook as one of the, let's say, knowledge template where you can find all the controls of the policy to implement inside your organization. What we did, we just combine them and link them to the objectives. What is the purpose of every single requirement? After that, we go inside the processes and determine the risk points. So what are the risk points inside our process, inside product lifecycle process, and name it, define it, and at the end, we did a risk assessment workshop where every single process owner and product owner actually assess the risk. You will see that later, what were the parameters of the risk assessment. And actually, we got all the risk that was colored with the red, yellow, and green. And of course, we have to do something with the risk, with the red risk inside the processes. So to every single risk, then we define the controls on the business level. So if we want to protect ourselves against that risk, you have to implement some controls inside your procedures, inside your solution, inside your processes. Then you need some actions. If we will detect that something is needed to be done, there are actions, corrective actions that you have to take care. And of course, as I said, we link that to every single process. So if we go from a high level, a little bit, how to say, down, so we use ISO 27, this one, we use all the controls and the policy inside it. We defined our objectives. Out of the objectives, we define all the requirements we need to incorporate into the processes. We define then the risks. So what are the points which are not let's say, fulfill the requirements and the moments. We define the controls that will support us to actually protect the risks against cybersecurity. So now I will show you step by step inside the tool. These were all the objectives. So that's the page I said. These are the real objectives here, written in Slovenian language. But this one, I just, for the purpose of this presentation, I translate it into the English. So ensure that only authorized user can access our system. So it means that they can access, let's say, our portal, our Dropbox, our mail. All the partners that are coming inside our environment are authorized, and we know who is on the other side. That's one of the policy. We don't want to share our knowledge, our documents, our emails with the people on the other side that are not authorized. That was the objective on the very, very high level. So every single objective was then documented. It was assigned to an owner. We use some different parameters inside the tool, just that we can do, different reporting, etc., etc. So we have objectives. After that, we have to add, again, out of ISO standard, we just copy and paste paste all the controls and then validate them, change them a little bit, modify them, etc. And you can get it for free. So you can get all the controls that are part of the cybersecurity. You can download it from the ISO book. And also IABA handbook in module 4 is mentioning cybersecurity risk and controls, but you will not find them literally, how to say, written in the IABA handbook. You have to go to the web and find something that you can work on it, because it will be very hard to start from the beginning. And we define, I think, at least it was 50 different controls. I will show you the example. So the control which is supported, that we want to only the authorized user can access our system, is that one. So a formal user registration and their registration process need to be implemented. It is a very simple control. There are no technical, how to say, requirements how we will implement it. We will come to that a little bit later. But this is the control you have to implement inside of your processes, that you will have a procedure for user registration and their registration in case, let's say, that the member of the project team will change and you have to replace them with another user. So every single control was described, especially for the manual. What does it mean and what are the purposes of that control? So when we have our controls in place and we link those controls to the objectives, it was very, very simple to actually write down the requirements for our IT department, and in that case for their IT department. Just to add, in the meantime, we also in our company implement the same standard 27001, and actually we incorporate it in our it means inside the company product development lifecycle, and it was actually a very good opportunity to get that certificate also for us, because when you have the audit, they will ask you the same questions if you have those procedures and those controls and requirements in place. So we have, as I said, objectives. We define all the controls, and out of the controls, we define all the requirements that are needed to implement that controls. Some of them were quite similar to the controls, but some requirements were a little bit different. Then we ask, so we now know what are the requirements needed to implement the control in place. Then we ask, okay, can we actually define which business activity, it means business activity inside the process, needs that control? And we said, okay, when we will start and initiate the project, you will probably invite different people inside your project team to participate in, let's say, knowledge sharing, document sharing. And that's the activity when we have to register all the external users, that they can access our Dropbox, that they can access our OneNote, SharePoint, etc. So now we know that inside that process activity, we need that control and we need that requirement to implement. And the second task we have to do is actually to add, now we have the process, to add what is the risk, cybersecurity risk related with that process activity. So it means, yes, that in that case, selecting untrusted or unproven partners, maybe a competitor, maybe a known person that can access our documents, our knowledge, and actually, you know, copy and paste it and transfer it into its organization. It's a very simple example, but just to see you how it works. And we at the end finish with around, it was 70 something, like a lot of different risks. Some of them were more related to the cybersecurity, some were more, you know, procedural, so you just need to do some steps inside your processes. But all the cybersecurity risks now were related and connected to the processes, and every single process activity now has linked. You see, this is the, let's say, for example, process activity. You have all the cybersecurity risk connected to the activity, connected to the process. Now I know all the requirements that are behind, and now I know all the goals we want to achieve with that cybersecurity. So like a pyramid, we got something that I call it a scope of cybersecurity. And then we go on. So you can do it manually, or you can not do it in the Excel because it's too complicated to control and to manage everything together. So that cross-reference cybersecurity is related to the process and the risk is then related to the requirements we need to fulfill and to achieve the controls, and everything in the end is connected to the objectives, what we want to achieve inside our organization. And one of the first results we got out of the solution, out of the tool we use, was a one-pager. We call this process risk one-pager. When you have different process activity on one axis and you have all the cybersecurity on another axis, and you have those, connections between the risk and between the processes. Now, every single process owner actually knows what are the risks inside his scope and what requirements should be developed and fulfilled to actually decrease the level of that risk. But before we go into the implementation part, we did the risk assessment. So now we know the risk, but we didn't distinguish between different level of risk. So we did the risk assessment, and every single risk was assessed based on 3 different attributes, I call it. The first one is the most important one. What is the impact on the business operation or asset? It means what is the damage that will be done if the risk will actually take place, if the risk will materialize in a daily life. So, and we have always the scale from green to red. We always use the color for different levels. So because everybody's very, aware what the red color at the end means. Then the second one was the probability, the likelihood, the probability that the event will occur, because you have something on a daily basis, and let's say something that might happen only once during the lifetime of the product. And the end, we define the level of control that is needed inside that risk. Again, we help in the chapter 4 of IIBA book. You have the same controls and the same, let's say, so-called impact metrics that will measure the impact that the risk will have on your organization. It is something that should be done by your customer, by the user of that metrics. And as a consultant, you always should be neutral in that case. You are not allowed to vote. So what we did, we prepare an empty matrix, we send it to the user, we got the results, we calculate the average, and out of that, we got the risk assessment. And out of the risk assessment, we did somehow the poster of the result. That was the only document I'm not allowed to show. So you have the risk that have actually very, very high impact on the business, and the probability that the risk will happen is also very high. These are the red risk, and you have to do immediately something on that risk. And of course, if you know the vulnerability of the organization through that risk assessment, you can organize the cyber attack on the company. So now you understand why it is not important for the case to see the metrics, but the answer was yes, we have some areas which were red. And even during the project, we still go on. They fix the risk and implement some solution to somehow make the organization more secure. So the last thing we have to do. So this was the business analyst part of you. I am a great fan of business analyst, and my point is that this first identification and the risk assessment from the business point of view cannot be done by the IT. The IT is not the owner of the cybersecurity risk. It's the business which is the owner of the risk, and have write down the requirements and the objectives we want to achieve with the cybersecurity protection. If you leave that to the IT department, you will see that, of course, they are aware of some risk, but there will be the area of some controls and some risks that will not be covered, and you have the potential threat points to actually, let's say, enter to your company and to do something which is not, let's say, good for the business. But the protection, a response, and the recover part of the cybersecurity lifecycle is of course more technical part of the story. Very quickly, just to understand, I will show you how we approach to that. I think I have 5 minutes more to the presentation, just enough to finish. So now we did the identification, and we know that what is needed on the infrastructure to protect the organization against the cyber attacks. Now we move to the detection, to the response, and to the recovery if something happened. We propose to them a 6-month review of the risk, and after the first one, which was done, let's say, only the halfway, we did the real risk assessment, and out of that risk assessment, we implement some of the projects that will deliver, how to say, in the real life, all the controls. So just for example, for user authentication, we did 2 different things. And if you are, let's say, familiar a little bit more with IT world, you will see the first one was to implement 2-factor authentication. So we said, okay, username and passwords are not enough if we are dealing with different patents, if we are dealing with intellectual right property. Those products I show you, those smart devices, are really at the top at the moment of the, how to say, development pyramid, and the know-how is the main point, the main asset we want to protect. It's not the technical part. You can buy technical parts all around the world, but it's the knowledge how to put them together. So we said, okay, you can access our, let's say, internal environment only if you need, if external users are using 2-factor authentication. But later we also implement one of the top solution at the moment for cybersecurity protection. It is called SignIt, and I will show you the example. It means even if you lose your credentials, your, I don't know, phone, one-time password generator, it is still possible that somebody will come into your environment. So can we detect that the user is the not right user, that somebody is behaving a little bit different? And we look around, and we choose one of the best, let's say, tools in the area of cybersecurity. It's not a commercial site, so I will skip it. But sorry, that tool actually protects the company against cybersecurity using the artificial intelligence which is behind and monitoring the activities of the user. And inside of the risks, I just look for one example to show you. So user logged during the night for the first time. Or the user is starting to download the files in an uncommon, let's say, volume. So the system will detect that Andrej, as a user which was logged in with the correct credential, behaves a little bit different, and will immediately raise a security issue. And then you have 2 different possibilities: to block the account or to call the cybersecurity operational center and say, can you verify that Andrej is at the moment online and actually doing via VPN on our servers? So you can see that the attacks at the moment are, let's say, very smart, and just to protect the company against the login, you can see that protecting the username, the password, 2-factor authentication, whatever, is not enough. You have to go beyond that to see the user behavior analytics and to see that something with the user is a little bit different. And if you recognize that even if the user is logged on correctly, you might issue a cybersecurity risk potential attack and call the right person and ask, can you verify it on any other way? And it happened really. It means that usually when they hacked your username and password, it is very common that they will enter into the network, into the system as you. And if the behavior of you is different, the first thing probably is just close or stop the account of that user for the moment and verify the user again. Is it really Andrej on the other side? That was what we can do in 40 minutes. It was just an example how actually we started with business objective and ended with the top end solution at the moment that will protect you against an authorized user accessing the content, the asset you don't want to share with the users. And if I go to the last slide I have, something like checklist. I cannot give you one checklist or best practice. You can just follow the steps, but I will recommend, if you want to incorporate cybersecurity framework into your processes, of course, start first with the objective. Ask yourself what is the most worth assets you want to protect. Is it the knowledge? Is it the system? What is it? Define it. When you know the objectives, ask yourself what kind of the controls on the process and system level do you need? Not in a technical language, but in the business language. When you know the control, then you can write down the requirements. As business analysts, we always write down the requirements. You have to do it also for yourself. After you write down the requirements, go to the processes, identify the risk, and assess them. And out of that, you will receive your action plan. Then you can talk with the IT guys that will help you to actually protect and to detect the events that might have some cybersecurity potential. And you will see that it's quite easy. It's not so difficult, but you need some discipline and some guidelines how to do it. And what I want to share with you during that presentation are those steps like a checklist. Don't go into the implementation of any system if you are not aware of the objectives and of controls you want to achieve. Because you always ask a sponsor for the investment into the cybersecurity solution, and you need something to, like a business case, like any other requirement. If we know what are the risks and if we know what is the value of that risk, let's say, for example, just ask yourself what it costs if your company doesn't work for 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute. And out of that, you can calculate how much you should invest into your cybersecurity technical framework to detect the risks and to protect and to recover against the attacks if they might happen. And at the end, maybe as a joke, but it's not actually at the time. If you are looking for a perfect environment without cybersecurity risk, at the moment, I think that the only office on that island can fulfill all the requirements. I'm sure that here there are no cybersecurity risks. The Corona situation actually forced us to open our processes, to open our organization to the outside world. And actually, we were not aware in different phases. We were not aware of many different cybersecurity risks. And I want to give you a very simple framework. It is not easy if you have some knowledge on a business analysis and IBA core concept model and other areas. You can implement that, and you will somehow prepare the framework that you can talk later with the IT and security guys how to solve those problems and how to implement the controls and detections in place and protect your organization against cybersecurity attacks. So I see a lot of things going on in the chat, but I don't understand them because probably they are in Netherlands language on any other. So if you have any question, I think we have 2 or 3 minutes before we will switch to another presenter. Do you have any comments, any questions, any remarks, anything that might help you protect your organization against cybersecurity?
First of all, thank you very much, Andrej, for this presentation. The last comment from Barbara is a compliment to you. Great explanation why BAs need to be involved early. As you said correctly, we need to be there from the start.
Yeah, it's not IT problem. I think that the first mistake you made in the organization is that you said the cybersecurity is the matter of the IT. It's not. It's the problem of business area.
Yeah, that was one trigger for me for the next phase in the project I'm working on. Just make sure we have the right cybersecurity, and that I, as business analyst, should be more worried for the business to make sure it's in place. Pierre-Philippe had a collection of questions in his comment, so I think we will go to that one. You seem to have covered all business processes, which is the ideal situation, of course, but how would you have done if you had either less time or not all models ready?
Very simple, because I'm working and I can help you or share the knowledge. I'm working in business process area for 20 years. So we didn't start from scratch. We already had something as a framework, as a template. I call it generic process organization of the company. And they are usually, what we did, I have to explain. We have the infrastructure for the product life cycle, if it is pure software, if it is pure hardware, and the combination. So we started with the generic product life cycle map, and we did the validation and some corrections, I think, in a one-day workshop. So don't start with scratch. Find on the net if there are some templates, and you can always ask me. Don't spend too much on the process level. Don't go into very deep, task, etc. No, you don't need it. You just have to cover the basic activities. And then when you actually decide to implement some cybersecurity solution, then it's time to check every single step, every single task inside the processes.
When you're looking at your company and your organization, do you have something like an ethical hacker in your team?
Yes.
To make sure? Can you work without an ethical hacker? Can you build the right security, cybersecurity, if you don't have that resource?
I mean, you can always hire it on the market. What we did in Slovenia in the moment, and it is founded by European funds, you can get, it is so-called cybersecurity voucher, and there are around 30 different organizations that are certified to help you building your cybersecurity framework, and you get 10,000 euros from the government. It's a non-refunding 10,000 euros to actually prepare the basis for cybersecurity solution implementation. We as a company are on that list. We have one colleague which is the so-called ethical hacker, but you can do it, but you need to hire it just to get another point of view. And of course, you will need a very technical expert if your internal, network and environment is a little bit complex. I'm business analyst, so if I need help, I know who to call. Let's say in that case.
All right.
But sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I want to say, just you have to choose the right time. Not at the beginning of the project. Just define the scope, define the controls, define the business requirements, and then talk with expert on the security level, on the IT level. Can we enhance those requirements now with the technical part? If you do it the opposite way, it's a never-ending story. because you will always find something new, some new solution, a very fun, whatever. You will spend a lot of money, but at the end, are you sure that you protect your core assets inside the company? What is more scary from my let's say practice is that I ask the owners and CEOs of the company, what is the most worth asset in your company, and they don't know. That's scary. They don't know what to protect, and if they don't know, you are not able to implement the right cybersecurity solution. That's my point, and the point of that presentation. Start with the business and clear the business questions at the beginning.
That's a great point to start. One final question. In the previous slide, you showed the model again. When you look at the BABOK and the models in there, should this be in addition to the BABOK?
I think that this cybersecurity training book, which was published by IBA, is a very good start. We use it, and then we actually go also parallel to the IBA, methodology. But also inside that handbook, they mentioned that there are some other institutions that also cover that area. I think that the best way is to build your own methodology, just taking what is on the market and to implement it. And I think at the moment we don't need another book, another extension from IBA. You just have to go through it and to see what is in those knowledge for me, for our organization, and then implement it for the first cycle, and then start to, as a never-ending story. When you correct some threats, some risk, then you always have another round and another level and another level, and then you might add some new standards, some new knowledge, etc. No, I think that it's enough.
Okay, great. That is a bridge to our next speaker, but first, again, thank you for your time and your replies, your answers. And then to our next speaker, which is Bindu Channaveerappa. I hope I say it right again. And why I say it's a nice bridge, she is the co-author for Cybersecurity and Security Analysis Certification. So she has a good knowledge about that part you were talking about. Besides that, she's the director of IBA UK. And well, we were triggered in the previous presentations, and your title says how BAs can drive everyone forward in cybersecurity. So let's go on. Thank you, and have a nice presentation.
Thank you, Otto. I think the previous session, Andres, whatever was presented, my session would be a prequel to that. So you've seen the second part of the movie, but you're going to see the first part of the movie now. So as Andrej mentioned, it's the business. Why should we do it? And that's exactly what we will be looking at. And also we will still be seeing another sequel to it. Probably, I'm sure we all have been very much inspired by hearing what Andrej had to say and see how we all can become that cybersecurity business analysts. So first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. And thank you all for tuning in. And I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. I'm really honored to be here and share the imperative message on the importance of cybersecurity analysis. But before I get into the content, could you please tell me if you have already worked on a cybersecurity project or not? You can type in yes if you have already worked, or no if you haven't. And while you do that, a little bit about me. Why am I here sharing this imperative message? I'm a business analysis consultant, and I have been part of the cybersecurity analysis certification, which Andrej was mentioning during and at the end as well. I've been co-authoring that and also writing the exam questions for the same certification and also CBAP certification. I'm also one of the directors at the IIBA UK chapter. So since this certification curriculum, I have been speaking at various conferences in several countries as a flag bearer, talking about the importance of cybersecurity analysis within a mainstream BA. So it's not that we are going to talk about cybersecurity only as NFRs, non-functional requirements, but as part of mainstream analysis, as Andrej showed why it is important during the application lifecycle. And let it be part of our day-to-day BA work. And along with this, I deliver corporate trainings on information security awareness as well. In the next 20 minutes or so, we will be looking at why cybersecurity is important for business analysts and what is cybersecurity within the context of a project team, which you actually kind of saw a hands-on tutorial like in the previous session, but we're going to see at a higher level than that. And finally, the opportunities for business analysts in cybersecurity. Walter, any responses as yet?
Not frequently is the first response, and from me the same. I know it's important, but it's not the field I'm working in or I'm involved in at the moment.
Great. Can anyone define their cybersecurity policy, or do they know the contents of the cybersecurity policy? And maybe again, a yes or no would help.
And please write them down in the comments.
Yes, if you can, yeah, if you're aware of your security policy or if you can define it, yes. So while you do that, let's look at why cybersecurity. I'm sure we all have been reading and hearing about cybersecurity breaches, especially in the last few years, and COVID last year specifically, or that the message is out there now loud and clear that cybersecurity is a very important aspect to every organization, both big and small, charitable and commercial. However, equally prevalent another understanding within organizations is cybersecurity is either the security team or the IT team's responsibility. And I, as an individual, have nothing to do about it because it's all the technical solutions, and I am not a technical person to understand or don't need to care about the technical stuff. Again, going back to Andrej's point, it is the business responsibility, which means each and everyone's responsibility in the organization who are dealing with the business. So before we go further, let's understand that cybersecurity is securing the cyber world, yes, which is technical in nature, but that includes the data as well. But the solution and the controls may or may not always be technical in nature. So we need to first of all understand that. And as business analysts, a very much important aspect is we definitely don't need to be cybersecurity experts to protect our systems and data. We don't need to have all the solutions to the cybersecurity requirements within our organizations. But instead, we will remain within our roles as business analysts and extend the scope of our analysis to include security holistically and tap into the cybersecurity experts as and when the situation demands, which we actually saw an example as well in the previous session. Exactly the way we call upon the business SMEs when we need to understand more on a particular subject, we will now call upon the cybersecurity experts as and when our analysis dictates. Any response to the second question, Walter?
Yes, a few, and mostly we are not yet familiar with it.
Yes, I thought so as well, because this is something which I've been hearing from many people. So I think this is the key lesson or the key awareness what we are actually seeing among many people. So why is this the case? So let's see that with an example. So here we are seeing an image of a bicycle, and we know that the bike is parked in the parking place. It should be locked. Yes, there is a tick mark for that. Is it locked? Yes, it is locked. Is it the right lock? Yes, that is what everybody uses, which is a loop lock. And that is what even I have used. So the bike is parked properly, the bike is locked. So all the tick boxes are ticked. But now, the correct question to ask is the bike secured? And to answer that, it is certainly not. Organizations are doing exactly the same. They think they have ticked all the boxes by having a framework introduced or doing all the legal and compliance things that are required, and everything is secured. But we know that is not the case. It is not about ticking the boxes. It is all about why we are ticking and what we should be ticking. And that is the awareness point. So here are some of the organizations where we know very popular names, and they are all victims of cybersecurity. And these are just a few among many, many, many others. So these organizations have a dedicated security team to look into each and every security aspect, and they have ticked all the legal and regulatory requirements. And yet, in spite of all of these, they have become the victims of cybersecurity breaches. And research proves that in most of these cybersecurity incidents are related to, any guesses here? That is people and processes vulnerabilities. And that is purely due to lack of awareness. So let's look at an incident here to understand what is the lack of awareness here. So one of the examples I'm going to share you here is with this TalkTalk. TalkTalk is an internet service provider in the UK. And in 2009, TalkTalk acquired another smaller organization, which is also an internet service provider called Tiscali. As part of this acquisition, Tiscali's systems, processes, employees, and customers, the data, everything was merged into TalkTalk. This happened in 2009. In between 2009 and 2015, TalkTalk's database was compromised. And this was due to the vulnerabilities that existed in Tiscali's system. And the compromise was not just once, but multiple times. There were multiple data breaches. Customers' personal data, such as names, address, phone numbers, email IDs, and their debit or credit card information, financial information, was compromised. And customer data up to 4 million were impacted. TalkTalk didn't even know the magnitude of the data breach, and it took them months to figure out the details. And as a result, TalkTalk incurred damages up to £40 million. And it had lost probably over 101,000 customers since the breach, and was imposed a fine of £400,000. But you know, the shocking fact was, TalkTalk only responded when they received an email for ransom. And they didn't even monitor their internal reports, which was actually showing the discrepancies very much years before the attack. And also the Metropolitan Police arrested a teenager and a 20-year-old in connection with this breach. So obviously it didn't take an expert. So let's look at the actual reasons for these breaches. The very first reason is TalkTalk failed to remove or secure the vulnerable pages, which was in Tiscali's system. TalkTalk also failed to update the outdated software, which is a patch update, which every organization have to do, and TalkTalk didn't do that for years. Failure to undertake proactive monitoring activities to discover vulnerabilities. As we saw in the previous presentation, there is always tracking, and that didn't happen, monitoring. that didn't happen. And finally, they didn't even implement a solution or a control which was for a common type of attack. Now, take a moment to think, what if a business analyst had stated all the application and processes security requirements? Then probably they could have built a much more secure system and a robust system and avoided the breach. And we saw that example as well. So, if not anything else from this presentation, if you could take away this one point, that business analysts, if we can take that responsibility to state all the application and processes security requirements, and not just as non-functional requirements, something to put in the end, then we can be on our way to build more robust systems and secure our information assets. One of the many, many reasons why GDPR is here is because organizations failed to own their moral responsibility towards the data, the customer data that they were holding, which again goes back to the point of lack of security awareness. So, why is that we are not aware of cybersecurity? Why is this the case? What are we missing here? To understand this, let's take a step back. I'm sure you would have recognized on this slide, which is kind of evolution of technology or a technology progression. So for any change to happen, we need to understand why this change is required. And when we know the big why, then what, how, who, when can somehow be figured out. So, how many of you recognize this standalone computer here? A really big computer. Probably very few. I can't really see who all have. So, when I started my career as a consultant, analyst, developer, coming from a technical background, my job was to work with clients to understand their business requirements, design a database, build a system to meet their business needs, give them a training for 2 weeks, hand over a complete delivered system, and then move on. And you know what? I used to do all of this on one standalone computer. All my coding, my executables, the actual customer data, everything was on this big computer. And the only vulnerability was using a floppy disk, which was used to copy data in and out of the computer and potentially could corrupt the files if it contained a virus. And the solution also was very simple. All I had to do is run another antivirus program to remove this. And this one solution could be replicated on all the other computers in the organization, which was quite simple. Later on, we started connecting computers as client servers, local wide area networks, and with the advent of internet, we have distributed our systems across the globe. Today, our customers can initiate a transaction in one place, on a location, on one gadget, and later on complete the same transaction at another time, another location, and another touch point. From wired, we have moved to wireless, and it's wearable today and probably implantable going forward. Now, just try to imagine the potential weaknesses or vulnerabilities in the globally distributed system. What all can go wrong here? If you actually start listing it, the list can go endless. And the reason I'm telling this is I have actually tried it, so don't even do it. And this is exactly the reason why we hear and read about the breaches every other day. And many BAs and organizations are kind of still stuck here. Like earlier, like the floppy disk, there is no one solution. Vulnerabilities today comes with its own risks and impacts, its own legal and regulatory requirements, compliance requirements, and its own completely different defense solutions, which can be technical and non-technical again. People management around that, process management, disaster recovery, business continuity, just to name a few. And throughout this journey, businesses have been adapting to the progressing technology. And as business started expanding, the shorter list of the user or system requirements back then also started expanding to take the shape of functional and non-functional requirements. And security was part of the non-functional requirements. And that was absolutely fine up until a few years back, where security was just limited to who can or who cannot access a system. But that is not enough anymore. Today, our user experiences is no more limited to when a person logs in or logs out. System boundaries are beyond the login and logout. And also, in the current landscape, disrupting and challenging the ecosystem has become the norm for organizations because they want to enhance their customer experience. And we are surpassing our limitations. And today, with technology, it's our imagination that is the new boundary. Did we ever imagine for robotics and AI to become part of our daily lives, be it robotic dogs patrolling the parks or our virtual assistants reminding us to do our laundry? We also keep an eye at our door front when we are on holiday, of course, hopefully soon, or in the previous world. And at the onset of a road accident, calling the emergency services, triggering the insurance process, and also calling a taxi so that the person can continue his or her journey. All of this now just happens within 10 minutes. And this is the beauty of technology. But as the saying goes, when we pick up one end of the stick, we also pick up the other end of the stick. So along with the beauty of technology comes the beast cybersecurity. So the point I'm trying to make here is the more technology expands, the more vulnerable our ecosystem gets, and the more security controls required. So now that we understand why cybersecurity is important for organization and specifically for business analysts, so going back to the talk example itself, if as business analysts, if we had really stated those requirements, we could have probably avoided that. So let's understand what is cybersecurity within the context of our projects. So we actually saw one of the live example, what Andrej presented us. So these are all the different cybersecurity project avatars that we would be working. So it could be a technical or a process control, such as password authentication or a multi-layer authorizations, two-factor authorizations, whatever examples. Or we may be working for encrypting our data, securing our firewalls, or even providing a secure communication between the gateways. We could be working on projects where we are implementing the security frameworks, or even a legal and regulatory project, a compliance project, for example. Or we could be working at a strategic level, performing risk analysis or information analysis. So when we are working on any of these projects, are we mindful about the security objectives that is defined in the organization security policy? As we saw, not many people are aware of that. Then how do we know what we are securing? What are we protecting? And why are we even protecting? Do we even recognize the lifeline of our data, our informational asset? And do we know what happens if we are not protecting it? What is the damage extent of? Yes, we know the damage, but to what extent? And again, as Andre mentioned in his final Q&A, do we really know? Are we concerned about the confidentiality or the integrity or the availability of data? These are the key questions that we should be doing in the beginning, but we should be mindful when we are actually developing our applications. As business analysts, we create alternate scenarios. Do we create those alternate scenarios for a hacker or somebody who is breaking the system or who is not authorized to use it? And when we create a personas, do we also create a persona of a hacker? If we don't do it, we are missing a lot here. And we also spoke about the testing aspect. Yes, white hat testing is something, an ethical tester to break the system, and that should be mandated. And during the development phase, do our developers understand the need for the requirement, or are they just reading the requirement? If they just read the requirement and develop, and that's exactly why we are seeing many vulnerabilities in our digitalized products. We have every product is digitalized today, and every product has a vulnerability too. I'm sure many of you might have read those incidents, those kettle incidents, or even healthcare incidents. Healthcare products are with vulnerabilities, and that is because developers, they just read requirements and they develop. They really don't get into the details or be mindful about why they need to secure that. If they are mindful, automatically those things can be fixed. So only when we see all of these together, we will be able to define security, which is the protection of the systems, the networks, the people, and the data. So I'm being mindful about the time here. So we saw why cybersecurity is important for business analysts. We also understood what is cybersecurity within the context of our project. And finally, we'll be looking at the opportunities. So what can we do as business analysts? We know the problem, we know why there is a problem, and we also know how to deal with it. So, what can we do to prepare ourselves to be in a position to address all of these issues is what something we will look at in the last 5 to 6 minutes. So, opportunities for business analysts in cybersecurity. So, this is a high level image to understand what exactly we need to know for cybersecurity analysis. So the gray area in the middle is the BA core BA knowledge. All our tools and techniques, our models, frameworks, everything will still be applicable. As a BA, whatever we are doing, we will need all of that, and we will continue to do all of that. And these hexagonals on the outer end circle is the security or the cybersecurity expertise area, which is where the subject matter experts sit. And this orange bit in the middle is the security knowledge that as BAs, we need to be aware of that, which is again what Andre was talking about, IIBA's curriculum as well. And so if we are aware of those, then we will be actually asking those questions as part of our analysis. We will be including security as part of our analysis. And as and when we think we need more information, more expertise, then we go to all of these people. So the very first step, yes, we can, all of us can look into this certification, which IIBA has put together, in which is in a BA language for the BAs. It is a kind of similar to, as Andre also mentioned, in line to Babok, and it has kind of the use case language. So it is much easier if we have read and understood Babok in line to that. But however, if you're not ready for that, all you can do is, these are the list of resources for cybersecurity. There's a long list where you can start looking at or reading into it and trying to be aware or try to see what we can do in all of these. So this is something you can try it and see if you would like to do this. But my recommendation and my suggestion is all of us, every BA should have cybersecurity knowledge, because only then we will be able to deliver a complete analysis. Without cybersecurity, our analysis is definitely not complete. So this is something I highly, highly recommend for every BA, or every good BA should be doing it. And finally, some statistics on cybersecurity, where you can see, you can read it later on, but just two things what I want to highlight is the very first one, that 95% of the cybersecurity breaches are caused by human error. And that is only because there is a lack of awareness. So that is where, when business analysts, when we talk to people, we are actually kind of the middle person between the business and the technical side, and that is exactly why we should be taking that responsibility and include security holistically as part of our day-to-day work. And because the cybercrime solution is not a one size fits all. Every project is different, every requirement is different, so we need to creatively customize the countering solutions and also implement that very, very strategically. And finally, what I want to kind of bring your attention to is, again, a prediction of 3.5 million unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs that are out there. And I think we will have to kind of take that ownership as middle level leaders to talk about this, bring that awareness, make sure it is part of the overall organization's objective, and at every level of the project, no matter what we are doing, because as BAs, from the beginning till the end of the project lifecycle, we are involved. So at every stage, it's our responsibility, and we should own that responsibility to do that. Because I feel that business analysis is a mindful profession, because we consciously and continuously see what the business can do to improve. And being oblivious to security is like not having a complete systems thinking approach, or as they say, failing to see all the cogs in the machine. So being well informed on the cybersecurity breaches and technology enhancements in your domain and others can help organizations to keep up to date in terms of failures and to remain ahead in the chasing game. So finally, as my final statement, security is, kind of a paper chase game. Okay, it's only a journey. There is no destination, because we have to keep monitoring and we have to keep improving. And I think only when we are mindful about this and collectively take the responsibility, only that would be the key to win. So you all have the action points and the links so that you can start looking at it and implement from day one, start asking those questions, and do explore the information, develop awareness using all the resources that's there. And most of all, I hope that you are empowered to take an action on cybersecurity and own it as part of your analysis. So thank you very much for joining me, and let's continue the conversation at the Q&A session, or you can reach me at the below address on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And at the end, not at the end, earlier on, I understood your remarks at the beginning. It could be a prequel to Andrej's presentation. I saw some comments passing by from, those are great questions you ask for the organization and what we should do as a BA. I have a nice recent news item in the Netherlands. You said, what can happen when you have a standalone PC? You can bring a virus via a floppy or USB drive. Recently, some organizations had that's for security, but put the computer at the side of the road to get trashed, but forgot to erase the hard disk, and it landed at a newspaper which had all the critical data. So even if you are standalone, and that's the 95% human error, this is a good example. What can still go wrong if you are working standalone?
I think there are quite a few social experiments that's done. In one of the universities, there were around 300 odd USB sticks that were, thrown in the parking lot, and out of that, 50% were picked up, and I think around 30 to 40% were actually plugged into the system. And I think there was another experiment on phishing as well. There was a training given on phishing, and even after the training, there was 70% or people who just still clicked the link where they shouldn't have done. So I think that is the human error, which I think we all do as well. Because we are all so busy. I had made a purchase on a day, and the next day I got an email from PayPal. So my mind automatically went back to my previous transaction, and I was about to click it, but then something in me said, "Are you sure you want to click this?" So that is exactly because this is something natural, and I know that during this COVID, each and everyone, including my kids, are receiving messages to say, you know what, your parcel is arrived, or this is stuck here, click here. So this is something each and every one of us have to be mindful, whether it's personal or organization. And I think as BAs, we do hold that responsibility.
Yeah, that's correct. And well, you hear it all around that now everybody's working from home, connecting to the office. People are trying to hack in your PC so that they can hack into the office. It's a risk. We have some questions. Gunter is the first. What's the possible BA contribution if a pressing cybersecurity issue occurs what wasn't identified before?
Okay, the BA contribution, the first thing foremost you can do is, if that was not identified before, start putting a process. Start talking about that. What if it happens again? Or maybe you can take a step ahead, being proactive, to check what is that we have the monitoring operations that's are already in place. If something is not in place, start talking about that. But if we are not aware and something has already happened, then I think we have to start taking the steps to avoid it.
Yeah, agreed. And well, there will always be new issues occur because the criminals aren't waiting for us to upgrade our security. They're challenging us all the time. The next question is from Pierre Philippe. Is cybersecurity underestimated in business analysis, according to you? And if so, why?
Is it overestimated? Okay, I can see cybersecurity underestimated in business analysis, according to you. Why? Yes, definitely. I think that is exactly why I had to kind of say that why that is the case, because traditionally we have been kind of doing it just as NFRs. We always think that it is okay, security is nothing but NFRs, and that is why it is definitely underestimated. And now it's time for us to bring it to mainstream analysis. It is no more something in the end we are going to do as a patch, or we're just going to say, okay, who has and who do not have the access. So it has to be in every conversations. Like, for example, I always say, if there is a beautiful, shiny object, a shiny diamond, everybody knows that they have to protect it. But here we are talking about the informational asset, which is the most asset in the organization, the precious one. But that is something where none of us see, because it is not physical, it is not tangible, and that is why we try to miss it. So definitely it has to be, it is underestimated, and we'll have to, it is our BA's responsibility to bring it to mainstream and talk about it, and also, educate the organization if they are not prioritizing it.
No, great, yeah. I hope Andrej is still there. The next question I would like to drop to both of you. I hope I can join again in the stream. If not, I'm already starting with a question so you can think about it. This one is from Bert. I'm an advocate of good cybersecurity, but are there good counter arguments for security, or a good way to discuss without security creating a crippling situation? And there's the question.
I think that is what has happened in many organizations. I know, I have been there. They say, you know what, don't talk to the security people yet because they're going to become a blocker. And I think that is something we will have to kind of challenge, and we'll have to kind of, I think that is an ongoing thing. For example, for any business case to be signed off, we have to present the arguments why we need, and I think that discussion always happens. So now another factor to that would be cybersecurity, why it is, and that is exactly what I was trying to share during my closing statement is, if we are mindful about what's happening in our domain and others, we can bring that information, because I'm sure we can find breaches in all domains today, and we can talk about that, why we need to include, because there's already something that has happened. So we can't wait anymore for us, because I think today it's not if, it is when. It is not if there would be a data breach, it's about when there is a data breach. So it is nothing but constantly keep monitoring. We don't stop locking our doors to say, okay, if at all something happens, we anyway lock our doors. So that is exactly, it should be part of the lifestyle in our organizations to include security no matter what, because if we are not doing that, the impacts are huge. And only when we are aware of those impacts can anybody take the decision. As I said, when we don't know why we need to do, it will never be important. So I think it takes time, because every organization is different. But I know so a few organizations, for them it is so important. They have already put a process in place, and for every phases there is a gateway where security has to be, kind of considered, and they have to give a green go ahead for the next phase. So some organizations are like that, but some organizations are picking up. I think that's a journey every organization will do.
Unfortunately, we have to stop here. One trigger, you said if we lock the door, then we have security. But are we secure? Is the next question pops in mind after your presentation. For everyone joining us now, in about a minute or two, we will have the intermezzo. You can go back to the environment and then tick on the program and join one of the two intermezzos. And if you're using social media, please use this hashtag so we can find your comments back. Thank you very much again, Bindu, for this presentation. Bert replies again with excellent answers. Thank you, Bindu. So I think that's a nice closing for this session.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you. Speak to you all soon.